Hello and welcome to our discussion today. We want to focus on leadership types and traits in our discussion. In previous sessions, we have looked at theories that guide the function of leadership. Today, we want to look at the types of um, leadership styles and then their traits. So, would look at the autocratic leadership style, the democratic or participative leadership style. We'll look at the laissez-faire leadership style. And then charismatic leadership. We'll also look at transformational and transactional traits, as well as strategic and operational leadership. So these will be our main areas for discussion today. So as a form of introduction, if you have followed our discussions on the principles of leadership so far, you would realize that we have said a lot of things about the fact that there is no one size fits all model when it comes to leadership, okay? And that leadership varies based on the personality of the leader, based on the culture within which the leader finds himself in, as well as the context or the particular situation within which whatever issue has to be addressed is in. Okay, so leadership varies based on a lot of factors. There's no single leadership model that can fit every occasion. It is therefore important that managers or leaders try to understand how they are, okay? Try to understand the style of leadership that works best for them, and then try to also adapt to the varying situations within which they find themselves. So it's essential for managers to understand their own leadership styles, and then they can adapt to the style, or they can adapt to the environment within which they find themselves. Okay. So the first leadership type we look at is the autocratic leadership. And with autocratic leadership, you realize that there is a centralized control. What it means is that everything emanates from the leader. Okay, everything comes from the leader. If it's an instruction, it is what the leader says and nothing else. What it means is that team members or followers do not have any input to make when it comes to autocratic leadership. Okay, even if the members or the followers make an input, the leader would not consider what the team members are saying. So, with autocratic leadership, you realize that there is centralized control where most of the authority resides with the leader. And there's also very limited team input. People are not able to contribute to decision making. They are not able to make suggestions. There's nothing from the followers. All they do is receive instructions from the leader as and when it comes. Okay. So with autocratic leadership, you realize that the leader makes all the decisions, and the leader expects that the followers comply. So if it's an instruction that is given, it is obey before you complain. The followers would have to comply with whatever instruction the leader gave before, if they have any challenges, they talk about them. Okay, so the leader makes all the decisions and expects total compliance from the followers. There are some advantages of autocratic leadership. You realize that with autocratic leadership, decisions can be made quickly, okay, because it all comes from the leader. And once he says a particular thing, everybody runs in that direction. So decision making is quick, right? And in most of the times, when you have a crisis or when there's a situation that calls for quick action, you realize that autocratic leadership comes in handy, because at that time, there's a crisis and people do not really know what they have to do. And so they need the leader to give instructions, and then the followers would act on it. Okay, so you realize that in the military, most of the times you'd see autocratic leadership style among the military men. Okay, so leaders are able to make quick decisions, and in times of crisis, you realize that they are able to yield results with this type of leadership. However, autocratic leadership can stifle creativity. It limits the inputs that followers make. And so, because of the limited input from followers, they are not able to be innovative, they are not able to be creative, and they cannot bring any suggestions on board because the leader would not accept them. Okay, so autocratic leadership can stifle creativity. And then it can also demoralize the followers. It makes people feel that they are not any good, or they cannot contribute any meaningful thing to the group, and that everything has to come from the leader. So there are times that autocratic leadership is mostly used, and it's of a high it's a requirement, right, that autocratic leadership styles be exhibited. So for example, when you have a critical situation in an emergency room, the head doctor would in that instance take on the role of an autocratic leader, okay, so that whatever has to be done will be done quickly. In the emergency room, that is not the time to have a meeting or a discussion to see the best course of action. Someone's life is at stake. So in the emergency room, you realize that the best form of leadership would be the autocratic style, where the leader knows exactly what to do and knows the instruction to give and direct the followers as to what to do. We have also seen examples of this in the military operations, and it's useful in military operations, okay, where actions would have to be quick and swift. It's also used in high-risk projects where the leader cannot afford any mistakes from the followers. In that case, it is important to use the autocratic leadership style, right? Then you have the democratic or participative leadership. And this one emphasizes group participation and collective decision making. So, unlike the autocratic leadership style, where all the instructions come from the leader, and the leader is the one who says what has to be done, with democratic or participative leadership, you realize that there's an emphasis on group participation. Everyone's ideas are welcome. When it gets to decision making, the followers are also allowed to make inputs in whatever decision that is being made. So you realize that the leader involves the team members or followers in the decision making process. And even when a particular decision or idea will not be taken, the leader makes the contributor or the follower know that the inputs that they made are valued. So even if the input will not be taken into consideration, the follower knows why the leader would not consider that idea, but he makes the follower know that the inputs are valued. Okay, so some advantages of the democratic or participative leadership style is the fact that it enhances morale and helps employees to come up with creative ideas, to come up with new things, to come up with very strategic ways of solving problems that arise. Okay, so the democratic or participative leadership style enhances morale. it enforces innovation, and also helps the employees to feel a part. Okay, they feel that they belong to the group. Why? Because their inputs are valued, because whatever decision that comes up is a collective decision that is made, not just the decision of the leader. So it makes the followers own whatever decision that is made. And when instructions are given, it is easier to have the followers comply. The disadvantage, however, is that it is time consuming, because everyone has to make an input, and then after the options are laid on the table, the same people decide which is the best option to go for. And sometimes this can be very time consuming. It can also lead to conflict, because you realize that among team members, there will be a conflict as to whose idea has been taken and whose idea has not been taken. So at the end of the day, if the leader is not careful, accepting inputs from every member is likely to lead to conflict. Okay. And the areas where you would see a lot of application of this participative or democratic leadership style is in the creative industries, okay, where people come up with things or creations. So maybe fashion, or people come up with articles, people come up with stories, people come up with movies, with music. You realize that everyone makes an input, okay? So the democratic or participative leadership style is mostly found in the creative industries. You can also see it in a lot of educational institutions, okay, or in the universities, where it is known, or where people tend to accept the fact that knowledge is not found in one person's mind, or you don't find knowledge residing with just one individual. So there is a lot of collaboration on issues. There's a lot of collective decision making in educational institutions. And then you also have consultative bodies, okay, applying a lot of this democratic leadership style. Then you have the laissez-faire leadership style. With the laissez-faire, what the leader does is to provide all the tools that the followers need to get the work done. Okay, so the leader makes available the tools that are needed and all the resources that are needed to work. But the leader himself would not be around, will not impose on the team what has to be done. So once he makes the resources available, he allows the team to get the work done any way they want to get it done. So he makes available the resources, but will not give instructions on how the resources will be used. He allows the team members to have full autonomy as to what to do to achieve the results that are expected. So some of the features of the laissez-faire leadership style is that the leader most of the times gives minimal interference. He will not necessarily interfere in the work that is being done, so far as all the resources and tools that are needed have been made available. Okay. And in this case, you realize that the leader trusts in the team's ability to get the work done. So because the leader has that trust in the team's ability to get the work done, he will not interfere in the work that is being done and allow team members to complete the task with very minimal interference. Some of the advantages of the laissez-faire leadership style is that it encourages innovation and accountability, right? It helps the followers to come up with something new and also to say how they got their work done with the resources that were made available to them. So it helps um the followers to be accountable, all right, and to show how resources were used. The disadvantage, however, is that in most of the cases, there is lack of control. The leader may lose control of the team or of the group because he is mostly not around and has given the group full autonomy. There's also the risk of confusion because no one is around to direct the team on what to do. So there's the risk of confusion, and there's also the a lack of control of the team. Everybody may do what he wants to do or may do what he feels is right at the moment. And the laissez-faire leadership is mostly used where businesses are starting up. Okay, so where there is someone sets up a business and has employed people who already have expertise. Okay, so for example, you start a tech business and you employ an IT professional who has a lot of years of experience. You'll notice that in this case, the entrepreneur himself will make all the necessary resources available to that IT expert and allow the guy to do the work the way he wants it done. Okay, so you have startups with expert staff, and then you can also have research institutions. Okay, so when people work with research institutions, you realize that they have the autonomy to do the work the way they feel is right to have it done. Then we look at the charismatic leadership. This charismatic leadership style is based on an individual's charm or the person's vision or the person's emotional appeal, right? So you realize that based on how an individual can carry the followers or how that individual can influence the followers with his own you call it charm, but there are some features the individual has that will command people to follow him. Okay, so this is based on that individual's charm or on his vision and also his emotional appeal, right? And you realize that for most of such leaders, they are able to motivate. Okay, when they speak, they speak with a lot of energy. They have high energy levels, and they are also able to persuade people when they communicate. You're able to get people to agree with your point of view. Okay, so that is a charismatic leader. When the person stands to speak to a crowd, you realize that he gets the whole place charged up, and people are willing to follow him in the pursuit of whatever vision that he has. Okay. And the advantages of the charismatic leadership style is that it drives enthusiasm. Okay. It edges people on, it motivates people, and it gets people to follow the leader. And in most of the cases, you realize that for a charismatic leader, most of the followers are loyal. Okay, most of the followers are loyal to the leader and will follow him no matter what. They will stand with that leader no matter what. And in most of the cases, these charismatic leaders, when they are able to stand, they stand for change. Or when they rise up, you realize that they are rising up for change, and it is for a good cause. In most of the cases, in their minds, it's for a good cause. Okay. Then you have some disadvantage where followers tend to all the time depend on such a leader. Okay, if the leader is not around, nothing gets done. But once the leader arrives, you realize that everyone's energy levels shoot up and they are ready to work. Whilst in the absence of the leader, everybody is just there, not motivated. They are waiting for the leader. Okay. Another disadvantage is that it tends to be leader centric, where every eye is on the leader, every gaze is on the leader. If the leader is not there, then there's no group. If the leader is not there, nothing will be achieved. Okay. So those are the disadvantages of the charismatic leadership. And we see it most of the times in political movements, right? You have several examples. We'll discuss them in class. I didn't want to mention names, but we'll discuss some of these applications in class, right? You see a lot of political leaders being charismatic leaders, okay? And then also in organizations, when there has to be a transformation, you notice that charismatic leaders arise, and based on their charisma, they are able to push the change that is required, right? Then you have transformational leadership. We have spoken about transformational leadership in previous discussions. We said that transformational leaders, they inspire change through vision and empowerment. They push people, they inspire their followers to do things that under normal circumstances they wouldn't have done. Okay, you realize that transformational leaders are visionary leaders. They are emotionally intelligent. They know what to say at what time. They know how to present a case to the followers that will push them to work and give off their best. Transformational leaders are also very motivational. Okay, so you realize that what they do is to appeal to the intrinsic motivational needs of their followers, not the extrinsic motivational needs. They look at the aspects of their aspects of their followers that will push them to give off their best intrinsically. Okay, so rather than focusing on how much that the employee is being paid, the transformational leader would focus on how accomplishing a particular task is going to make maybe the employee better. All right, it's going to fill some intrinsic need in that individual's life. Once the transformational leader identifies this, he's going to make use of that to also achieve his vision. Okay. And most of the times they focus on team development, not on just an individual's development. So transformational leaders, they focus on the entire team. Okay. And you realize that their impact is most of the times long term. Okay, they are able to achieve long-term innovation and change management. They are able to accomplish tasks that would that are relevant to the organization in the long term and will help the organization to meet its long-term goals and objectives. So once you talk about transformational leaders, then you think about transactional leaders. Transactional leadership focuses on the routine or on the structure as well as the performance. So transactional leaders looks at the task that has been performed and uh, the resulting reward that has to be given. Okay, so it looks at the work done and the reward to be given, or the action that has been done versus the reward or punishment that it requires. Okay, so transactional leaders, they look at the transaction, work done, salary, work done, bonus, work done, or whatever it is that they would use to reward the employee or the follower. Okay, so transactional leaders are most of the times detailed. Okay, they are detailed to the core. They'll look at the job description. Have you been able to do what you were told to do, how you were told to do it? Do you merit whatever is being given to you, and all of that? Okay, so what they do is to use extrinsic motivation, unlike the transformational leaders who use intrinsic motivation. Transactional leaders focus on extrinsic motivation, what they can give the employee to make them happy, not how the employee feels from within. Okay, but what external thing will make the employee willing to do the work. Okay. And once they identify this, they monitor the work of the employee to see if that employee or the follower deserves whatever reward or punishment has been set. Okay. You realize that the impact of the transactional leader is most of the time short term, right? So there's short term productivity. It also is able to get outcomes that are measurable. However, they are not long term. So for long term impact, it is better to make use of the transformational leadership style. Okay. Then we look at strategic leadership. Strategic leadership is the style of leadership or a type of leadership that focuses on long-term direction. Okay, if you say the strategic leadership, it means his focus is on the long term, 10 years, 5 years, what is happening. Okay, so they focus on the vision, how the organization is positioning itself, as well as what is happening around the organization. Okay, the external environment of the organization, what is happening politically, what is happening economically, what is happening, okay, socially, around the organization. So that leader is focused on the long-term goals of the organization, right? So a strategic leader is forward thinking. A strategic leader is analytical. A strategic leader is mission aligned. What it means is that if the goal in 5 years is to maybe get a location that belongs to the organization, that is what the strategic leader is focused on. And so, by all means, at all costs, that leader is aligned to whatever mission it is or whatever vision there is and tries to get the work done. Okay, so strategic leaders shape the organization's identity as well as its culture. All right. Then you have the operational leaders who manage the day-to-day activities of the organization. So, in contrast to the strategic leadership, operational leadership focuses on the day-to-day activities. So they focus on the short-term activities of the organization, whilst the strategic leader focuses on the long-term objectives of their organization. And the key focus for the operational leader is the execution of daily tasks. Okay, getting the work done. Another focus is on efficiency. So, getting the work done the way it has to be done and at the time it has to be done. Okay, it also focuses on the performance of the employees on a daily basis. So you realize that an operational leader is detail oriented, the operational leader is responsive and also process driven. What they do is that they ensure that if there are targets, for example, weekly targets, there are daily targets, it is the responsibility of the operations manager to ensure that these targets are met. So the operational leader ensures productivity and also tries to meet the targets that have been set. So this is just to differentiate between the strategic and operational leader. So for their focus, the strategic leader is long term, and then the operational leader has short term execution. And you realize that the strategic leader focuses on the external environment of the organization, okay, and is also future oriented, whilst the operational leader focuses on what is happening within the organization, okay, and focuses on what is happening presently, right? Then we also say that the strategic leader is someone who is a visionary thinker, okay, thinks long term, whilst the operational leader focuses on managing the process, okay, on a day-to-day basis. And then the strategic leader finally has organizational direction, right? Whilst the operational leader focuses on performance consistency. So basically, this is the difference between a strategic leader and then an operational leader. So you realize that for all the leadership types we have looked at, it is important that to excel as a leader, you do not stick to just one type. Remember that all of them have advantages and disadvantages. So it is important that the leader identifies which one will best produce the needed results in a particular context. So leaders adopt multiple styles based on the context within which they find themselves. And like we have already learned, situational leadership focuses on adapting based on the team's needs or based on the followers' needs, as well as what is happening in the environment. Okay, so it is important that as a leader, you get to explore all of these, whether your followers get to know what is happening with them, what is happening in the environment, and then that would make you know which of the leadership types will best work in a particular situation. Okay, and it is important that leaders in our time, right, blend strategic vision with operational excellence, okay? Because it's important that whilst you focus on the long term, whilst you focus on doing the big things, it's also important that you look at what is happening on the day-to-day basis or on the daily basis. So it's important to blend strategic vision with operational excellence, because it is the daily activities and daily routines that would all together yield the results that you are looking for in the long term. So it's important to balance strategic leadership and operational leadership. Okay. So all we have been saying is that leadership, or in other words, effective leadership, is multifaceted. Okay, there's no one size fits all, no single style fits all scenarios. As you understand the various types, the leader also gets to know himself and then tries to adapt when the context changes. Okay, the leader therefore has to be self-aware, know himself, know what he can do, what is expected of him, and the results that he's supposed to give off at every point in time. And as the leader becomes self-aware of what he can do, he also gets to know the people he's working with, and then he's able to adapt, okay, to fit into the context within which he finds himself, as well as the people with which he is working. All right. And then as all of this is done, you realize that you would become a responsible leader, or the leader would be one that the leader will be one that understands the people he's working with and also contributes what he can. Otherwise, you just be focused on achieving what has to be done, and it may not be done right. Okay, so it's important to know that the types, they vary, and based on what the leader can do, as well as what the followers have, or the kind of environment within which he finds himself, the leader has to vary the types and then adapt as and when it's needed. Thank you very much, and please prepare for a quick quiz when we meet and go through this, okay? So as we go through this discussion, prepare for a quick quiz in class. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.